exact time, so I do apologize to Bree Wood and obviously uh, Cole for my lateness. I don't know what time it is for most of my main viewers, but hopefully they'll catch this later. But yeah, today we'll be reacting to Zack Snyder's recent comments about Batman, and then we will proceed, yeah, to rank the MCU movies and TV shows for the very, very last time. I'm actually really pretty much done with the MCU as a franchise. I've never really been its biggest fan. So, and yet at the same time, I recognize they're making comic book movies for people who are fans of a certain type of comic book movie that I'm not particularly interested in. Yeah, it's cool to have like a universe and everything. And it's cool to connect everything. But to me, that's not the really interesting thing for me about comic book movies. Um, and or comic books, in general. The funny thing is actually, I realized recently, I've always more been into graphic novels, right? Uh, one-off stories. I don't need to follow a story for years and years and years of interconnectedness between these characters. Well, yeah, I like to see Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman in the same, story, but I still want it to be an enclosed kind of story. So, in a way, I think that the MCU, in that sense, was never really made for me in the first place. Um, so it'll be interesting. I'm gonna review it. I'm gonna review it fairly, considering. Um, oop, hello, yeah. So I'm going to rank it fairly, considering that. But yeah, let's get on to this Zack Snyder thing. I know a lot of people on the internet are really, really mad about what Zack Snyder had to say about Batman. Um, and I've got some interesting thoughts on this. I actually wasn't going to react to it because, you know, uh, I didn't necessarily think I really care about what Zack Snyder has to say anymore about any of these things. But there was something interesting that he said that I thought, actually, you know what? There is something I have to say about this. So, and it might not be what you guys think. Um, so let's go through this because Zack Snyder has kind of annoyed me a few times with like certain things he said about superheroes. And actually, with this one, I think I've got a little bit more of a unique take on it. So let's go ahead and listen. Tell me if you can hear.
What is it? What is it? What does it tell you? But does he stand up to it? Can he survive that? Right? As a god, as your god, can Batman survive that?
Is this it?
This is not Batman.
Ooh. Let me hear. I don't know why it's on this guy's channel. All right.
That's how crazy Netflix. That's what is that math? I don't know. 160 million times 10. That's 1.6.
Okay, let's hear.
The zeitgeist is crazy because like Rebel Moon. So say right now, there's like,
I just want to hear what you said about Batman. That's all.
finish the
Not sure of your trading style? Copy the strategy of the best. Let top traders work for you.
finish the movie sort of in the way that we had always hoped. And I'm just watching this actually it started me thinking about like what the movies mean, like how.
Okay, a little technical issue there. I was sure that was the actual Snyder interview with Joe. Let's see. All right, let's maybe here.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
But it's interesting to see when there's like such a strong reaction to certain things, and especially amongst like really wild hardcore fans, because there's hardcore like particularly
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, you well, you also face it because you cover these genres, you cover these subjects that are iconic. Superman, Batman. I mean, just those alone.
No. And by the way, that's a lifestyle choice for a lot of people. It's not a movie.
Right.
It's not a movie. It's not like if I made a romantic comedy, you'd be like, okay, that was fun.
Right.
Like the people who love, and by the way, I love that they feel this passionately. I'm not, in no way would I criticize that, because I feel I live the same life, right? Because like for me, it's morning, noon, and night. But so for those.
So this is the first thing I want to say. Clearly, what Zack Snyder and Joe Rogan have identified is the comic book. I don't even think these guys are comic book fans. I think they're comic book movie fans, maybe at the very best. But they're very they're very on one hand they're very hypocritical, because on one hand they'll completely accept a comic book character coming out and people completely changing the comic book character's story, completely changing central aspects of what makes that comic book character that comic book character. They'll completely accept it. Like look at Thanos. I mean, for instance, Thanos comes in, he's the Mad Titan. They make him into some philosophical guy who wants to delete half the universe. That's not this guy, this cruel, crazy guy who's trying to court death, and that's why he's, on this mission to get the Infinity Stone so he can kill as many people as possible to impress Death because he's in love with her. That's not that story. They fundamentally change certain characters, but then when it comes to other characters, they fundamentally change those characters, which supposed comic book aficionados completely celebrate. And then when it comes to other comic book characters, maybe like the Batman, or even recently I saw people squabbling about Shazam, and they make very, very minor changes to those characters, or they make they take some artistic license with those characters. I heard people complaining about the Batman, for instance, the aspects about the character of the Riddler, how the Riddler wasn't the Riddler, and they completely shit on those, a specific character, like Batman, which they've taken some kind of weird personal ownership over, and they go crazy over the most minor, kind of changes or artistic flourishes to these characters. And what it strikes me as is, how can you be comic book fans? Because no comic book artist or writer has written Batman it in the same way. It's as if they've only ever read one Batman story, like, or one version of Batman by, like, say, Danny O'Neill or something like that. You get the feeling that these guys haven't read different versions of these characters, because that's the whole nature of these DC characters, is that a different artist, a different voice comes along and they take certain core elements of the character, and they essentially, they make their own version. They make their own, they tell the story in their own way, right? Um, So, Jeff Johns' version of Batman is very, very different from Grant Morrison's, which is very, very different from, the Dark Knight Returns version of Batman. They're all very, very different Batmans. They all have the same core to them. They also have the same, this guy who's who found his parents were killed in front of him, when he was a child, and he suffers trauma and he turns that trauma into becoming the Batman. All of that is, there in each version of these people's story, but nonetheless, they come at it from different angles because they have different life experiences and different ways of thinking about things, right? And you can't expect filmmakers to do anything different from that. So, do I like Snyder's version of Batman? No, it's not my favorite. In fact, I think I've got Patterson's Batman over him. I've got Michael Keaton's Batman over him. I've got Christian Bale's Batman over Snyder's version. But is Snyder's version of Batman so deviated from the source material, or so deviated from anything, that I'm, super offended by it? No. He wanted his Batman to kill. I don't think that was a particularly good idea, but that's the personal journey in life that he's gone through. Now, if I were to blame anyone for not being able to foresee the reaction to his Batman or his version of Batman, then I would blame Warner Brothers. I wouldn't blame Zack Snyder, because Zack Snyder, in essence, people have to start thinking of these filmmakers as if they are just comic book writers, except they're comic book writers who get to tell the story of a comic book, but through the medium of film. And I generally champion that approach of not trying to just appease every, people who are, uh, people who are like, trying to appease every fan of a specific character, because I don't think you're going to. One, I don't think you're going to achieve that. You're never going to appease every fan anyway. So the best thing to do is take a personal approach. What is the story you want to tell? Like, I love, like, the Daredevil series, right? And that's a very, very personal approach to that character. This is somebody who says, this is the story I want to tell about this character. But a lot of people are probably like, oh, why isn't Daredevil jumping off roofs and, when and flipping and doing all the things that he does in the comics? And that's a perfectly valid approach to Daredevil, to make him much more comic booky. After all, he's a guy whose power is to be blind, and, like, he gets super senses because he's blind. It's a ridiculous concept for a character, but nonetheless, you can approach it in all these different ways. You can approach it in a super comic booky way, where it's just wild and wacky, and it takes in the silliness and fun of the kind of uh, childlike idea of, oh, some guy gets, chemicals poured on him and he goes blind, and instead he gains superpowers from it. Instead of just being completely depressed that he's lost his sight and, like, going through years of trauma and shit like that, he actually gains superpowers and becomes kick-ass and extra cool. You can go that way of just being really wacky and fun with it, like the Daredevil, movie did, right? but you can also do a kind of grounded version of these kind of characters. So in that sense, I'm just like saying, like, I just think these fans these days that he's talking about, that Zack Snyder in this particular comment, he's like, oh, you know, I appreciate these fans and I love their passion. It's bullshit. The only reason he's saying that is because his Snyder cult are some of the worst versions of this toxic fandom that we find nowadays, who are like children who can't accept, right, that people have an artistic point of view when it comes to filmmaking, right? And that if you want to make interesting films about superheroes, you can't gatekeep, and you have to allow people to actually have a. Uh, I hope everyone can hear me, by the way. I don't know if everyone can hear me. I hope everyone can. But you have to allow people, directors, writers, to have their own take. Otherwise, why would they want to make these films? Why would I want to make a film? If you want a director who just wants to make a film where it's just like, I'm just gonna, you know, take a character and I'm not gonna say anything about the character. I'm just gonna have them there and fight and tell a story, I guess. But I'm not going to in any way invest anything of my own personal emotion or feeling or humanity into this project. Then you're just going to get really, really cookie cutter crap. I would rather take a Batman v Superman where at least I know the director was trying to say something than just some cookie cutter trash that has no meaning, that you're going to watch once and you're going to go, oh, that was great because it was like my Saturday morning cartoon or whatever. And then you're just going to forget about the next day. Whereas, you know, for whatever I want to say about Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, one of them I do like, one of them I don't like. They've stuck with me for years now. I'm still processing and thinking about Batman and vs Superman and Man of Steel because I know that the director put his own personality into it, for better or worse, and made me engage with what he felt about those characters. So I'm going to continue on with this interview, but I'm just saying that I think that the problem is I don't think he should be defending these fans who are rabid and only will accept one version of the character. They won't accept anything else. They're bullshit. They're terrible, infantile people who are like more concerned with, uh, you know, with the most superficial aspects of a character rather than, you know, like their race or if they have the right hair color or, you know, uh, these kind of very superficial things than the actual core and essence of the character. They don't care about the message or the essence of that character at all. All they care about is these superficial bullshit things that mean nothing ultimately. And to be honest, sometimes you know, they'll be saying, "Oh, you know, look how comic accurate Grant Gustin is," you know, from the Flash show, in comparison with, you know, the Flash that they dislike, the version of the Flash that they dislike in the movies, I suppose. And I'm like, oh, you know, he's so much more like uh what's his fucking name? Jesus. They'll be like, oh, he's so much more like the Flash, and I'm like, you know, or Barry. Why am I forgetting the Flash's like civilian name? Um, because I'm actually a huge fan of Barry Allen. He's so much more like Barry Allen, right? But he's not got the same hair color. He doesn't have the he's not blonde and blue-eyed or anything like that. It's just the same crap. It's this. I don't think these guys are actually fans of the comics at all. Yeah, exactly, Shifty. That's who I was thinking of, Barry Allen. Shifty, you can join if you want. I don't know if you're up for joining, but here's um the link. But so uh yeah, it's just I'm just curious. You know, obviously he's got his Snyder fans, so he has to defend these toxic fandoms that are online right now. But they're children. You know, I always used to think comic book fans were cool. You know, I thought we were the cool guys. And what I've realized is we're actually the nerds. We're the infantile nerds who can't accept little, you know, any kind of change or difference made to our precious cartoon characters that we enjoyed when we were children. Oh no, it has to be exactly like the Saturday morning cartoon, otherwise I'm gonna throw a hissy fit online and start talking about gender politics, you know, and how I'm under attack because I'm a white man or whatever the fuck problem they have with every single fucking movie that comes out now. It was different when, you know, people were saying, oh, you know, Captain Marvel was woke. I never liked the fact that they were using woke or whatever to criticize Captain Marvel, but at least I could see where they were coming from. There was clearly an agenda in that movie, and the agenda was much more important than the storytelling. But then you let the fucking clowns out of the fucking clown house, right? And now every single fucking movie is some attack on their masculinity or their race, or it's got too many gay people, or it's got too many, you know, just fucking look. I get it. There are some times where they take it too far. They really do. But I still would prefer an artist or creative person being able to have their own voice and tell the story that they want to tell, which is what the comics has always done, by the way. This is no deviation from the comics. Danny O'Neill had his own voice. Um, you know, the what's the Dark Knight Returns guy? Fucking Sin City guy, Dark Knight Returns. Um, he had his own voice of Batman. He had his own versions of Batman. A number of these different, you know, uh, every single Frank Miller, exactly. Frank Miller had his own voice. Thank you, Shifty. Frank Miller had his own voice for Batman, and all of these guys, these comic writers, Alex Ross, you know, compare Alex Ross's Batman, right, to Frank Miller's Batman. Both are still Batman, right? But they're completely distinct interpretations of the same character, and it's based on their own artistic perspective or perspective, right? There's no, there, you couldn't get as far as possible in how two people could interpret the same material as, say, Alex Ross and Frank Miller. But both of the versions of Batman are actually dope. They're cool versions of Batman, you know? Um, and I don't know who let the fucking, you know, raccoons out of the fucking monkey house, where, you know, these children who are screaming on YouTube all the time about, oh my god, you did all this, you changed my character, you changed the, my life is over, you know, as if they can't go back to the versions of those characters they liked in the first place, you know. And I remember having this argument with uh, with um, Mike, Rogue Comics, He was like talking about, oh, Keaton's my Batman, and Christian Bale, like they completely deviated, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Keaton is as much a deviation from the source material, if not more of a deviation from the source material than Christian Bale ever was. Like, okay, Christian Bale wasn't a genius, but I didn't see specifically Michael Keaton's Batman being a genius. Michael Keaton's Batman was killed. His parents were killed by the Joker. Bale's parents were killed by Joe Chill. So each iteration of these characters that the filmmakers do, they can't cover every single aspect of a character that has gone back for 75, if not 80 years now. I think even 100 years now, actually. Now with nearly 100 years for Batman. They can't cover every single aspect that you've ever read of Batman in a single movie, you know? So that's my kind of issue. It's the fan base. And it's funny because I used to be, you know, especially when Man of Steel came out, I used to be one of those fans who's like, you've completely butchered Superman and this, that, and the other. And now I think back to it and I'm like, why was I so angry? Why was I so upset? Because in the end of the day, yes, I wanted to share Superman with a new generation, the Superman that I loved with a new generation. And, especially coming off after the Dark Knight and everybody loved Batman the way I loved Batman. I was like, cool. Now they're going to do Superman, and like, I was like, everyone's going to love Superman the way I love Superman. And, you know, Man of Steel didn't quite hit like that. And so I was upset, and I thought it was a missed opportunity. But in the end of the day, like, I could always go back to the Christopher Reeves movies that I loved if I didn't like this one. It wasn't that important. And to be fair to myself, I didn't go on for years and years bashing Zack Snyder and doing a million different videos, where I'm like, oh, he got Superman wrong and this and dissecting every single thing. I just said, this is my view of the movie, and I did my review and said what I had to say, and I moved on with life, and that's what adults do. That's what grown-ups do. Now these guys are bashing everything. They've got a new, um, uh, um, I think it's Avatar, the Last Airbender, and I'm watching this TV show, and I'm like, look, this TV show isn't for me. I kind of like aspects of it. I certainly like the visual aspect of it. It looks cool, but it's a little bit too kiddie for me. It's a little bit too childish for me. Oh, okay. No worries. No worries. I mean, you could, sure, you could come on anyway, but anyway. Yeah, no, Avatar, I think, to me, I tried to watch the cartoon of Avatar, and the cartoon, for me, I didn't really like it. I didn't get into it. I thought it was too kiddie. It had some elements of like modern manga stuff that I really don't like, with over the top acting and stuff like that. And so when I watched the TV show, I was hoping the TV show would finally get me into Avatar because it would be like a little bit darker version of the cartoon. And to be fair, it is, but it just it doesn't deviate enough from the cartoon. I think it's pretty much, a direct translation of the cartoon. I don't really see it as uh, like deviating from the cartoon that much at all. And in that sense, I'd be over the moon if I was an Avatar fan and, they made this TV show of Avatar. But no, not these fans, not the fans these days. Everyone's fucking upset about the weirdest stuff. You listen to it and you're just like, I would have never noticed that if these people didn't mention it in their ridiculous streams where all of a sudden they're experts on Avatar, as if they were the ones who wrote Avatar. That's how they're criticizing it. I would expect the people who are so emotionally scarred by these shows and these films, I would be like, if I were listening to them and I didn't know better, I'd be like, man, did you write this thing? Is that why you're so angry? Because they completely butchered your own work? Because otherwise, why don't you just go back and watch your fucking cartoon? I don't understand why you're so bothered by this TV show. Um, so I never watched the cartoon, but the show is good. Yeah, I kind of liked the show. I didn't, I didn't get into it majorly, because I didn't care about the characters enough. Um, kind of like you and the MCU. Yeah, I just didn't get into the characters enough, and I thought it was too much. Like, I don't know. It was just there was a little bit of silliness to it, and I thought like it was going to be a little bit darker, a little bit more mature. But other than that, I thought it was great. Or I thought it was good. I really enjoyed the first episode. As it went on, I was just like, oh, it's dragging a bit. I might get into it again, but it's just not necessarily my cup of tea. But I don't think it's bad. I think I would recommend it to Avatar fans because I think, like as far as what I've understood of what Avatar is, I think it's capturing it pretty well, in live action. Um, so yeah, that's basically what I have to say about that. Let me go on with this interview.
Those guys, it's not just a movie, and so you have to, on some level, you have to acknowledge that this is their religion, and they feel strongly about it. And by the way, the truth is, it's my religion too, So I tend to get in trouble because of I do take a deconstructivist point of view because of Dark Knight.
He does not take a deconstructivist point of view. People were saying that about him, and then he decided to roll with that. Like they were saying that on the internet, like he's deconstructing these characters, and then he decided to just roll with it, and you know, as if that was what he was doing the whole time. And I don't believe that's what he was doing the whole time. So let's continue this. I think he was trying to make his version of Superman. I think he was trying to make his version of Batman. That's what I'm trying to get at. I don't think he was taking a deconstructionist view. It just happened to be deconstructivist. If anything, somebody who successfully deconstructed a character while staying faithful to the character is Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves did that, whatever Zack Snyder was thinking of doing, he did that much better. And in fact, Zack Snyder did a better deconstruction of the characters in Zack Snyder's Justice League than he did in the previous two movies. Why? Because he actually let the characters be the characters, and then you know, then kind of analyzed what those characters actually mean on a symbolic level in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and by kind of comparing them to the Greek gods and this kind of big mythic characters and saying that they're our modern day mythology. So he did a better kind of deconstruction of what the meaning of these characters are in that movie.
Night Returns because of Watchmen. Those, if you've read those two comics, it's hard to go back. You know, to like you want to, and it's because I care that I want to take them apart. Like I want Batman. Like people are always like, well, Batman can't kill, right? So Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I want to do when you say that.
So here we go. So two things. First thing I'm going to say is about this statement is he is not saying that Batman should kill. He's saying that he wants to take apart and analyze the core meaning of these characters by getting them to do things that they ordinarily would not do. That's what he's saying, right? Now, does he achieve that in the movie? Is the question. Does he achieve having a greater understanding of Batman and a greater understanding of Superman by making them do things in Man of Steel and in Batman v Superman that they ordinarily don't do? And that's the problem with his thesis on these movies, is that actually in Man of Steel and in Batman v Superman, nothing is achieved really by making them kill. He doesn't come to any deeper understanding of Superman or Batman, for that by that measure, by changing what is known of them in the public kind of consciousness. He doesn't get to any deeper meaning of them by changing them in those movies. Like, so for instance, in Batman v Superman, we have a Batman who, in the beginning of the movie, he's killing people. Or sorry, you realize that this version of Batman kills. And then what do you discover? What does him killing specifically in this movie tell you about Batman in the end of the day? It doesn't really tell you anything more substantial about Batman at all, right? Whereas in Matt Reeves' film, where you get Batman acting somewhat uncharacteristically, because he deconstructs this notion of Batman being an agent of vengeance. And he says, okay, let's take that to an extreme. Let's say that Batman is always vengeance. Like he wants to be, that he's completely emotionally stunted by what happened to his parents, and he's just become the embodiment of vengeance. What happens to Batman when he has to confront the consequences of just being an agent of vengeance? And then you find out something about Batman. You discover and find out new aspects of the character that you've never thought of before. And that's the difference in the sophisticated approach to deconstruction that that Matt Reeves took in comparison with Zack Snyder, where it's just like, okay, we're just going to get him to kill people because, we know that that's going to rattle the fans, that's going to upset the fans, or that's going to cause discussion or debate or something like that. There was no other purpose to him killing in that movie. And in fact, the movie would have made more sense and actually been richer had he not killed, if he was maybe on the edge of killing or something like that. So that's the confusion, and that's the problem I've always had with Zack Snyder. It's that he wants to do all these sophisticated things, but in the end, which I'm all for. I'm all for doing really sophisticated, interesting things with these characters. But in the end, he doesn't actually achieve any of what he's doing. He seems more like he's just trying to troll people or just trying to get a rise out of people, kind of trying to be like an edge lord or something, just trying to like get a rise out of people, for tampering with, what generally people think about these characters. And I don't know that it's done any real good that he's done this. But the one thing I will defend him on is he has, maybe Warner Brothers shouldn't have hired him, but once they hired him, he has every right as an artist, as a creator, to tell the Batman story or the Superman story that he wishes to tell. And we shouldn't get angry and, send death threats and do all of this stupid shit that fans do these days because he changed an aspect of a character that we didn't like. It's fine. If you don't like Zack Snyder's version of Batman, here's what you do. You stick on the Nolan movies. And if Nolan isn't for you, you know what? You can stick on the Burton movies. And if Burton isn't for you, you know what? There's all of those fucking go back to Adam West or, watch the animated series. Maybe that's the one that does it for you. I actually didn't really think the animated series was all that great. I always thought it was fucking overrated, to be honest. I didn't like the Batman having no gadgets. He was pretty weak version of Batman in those animated series. So everybody's got their own version of these characters. I like versions from the comics. I like Frank Miller's version. I like Alex Ross's version of Batman. You know, there are all different versions that you can like. And yeah, I don't appreciate that he started off a universe of what was supposed to be DC characters by trying to subvert the expectations of what people feel about those characters. Why? Um, simply because I don't think that is the best approach to successfully launch a universe. That's a really good approach for a one-off graphic novel or adaptation of a graphic novel, which is probably what Warner Brothers should have hired Zack Snyder to do if they knew better, you know. But as for what he's saying, like should should Batman be able to kill? Yeah, if that's the story you want to tell of Batman, and you've been granted the ability to tell that story, it should offend absolutely nobody. All you need to do is say, does Batman killing work for the specific story? It's not about, oh, Batman can never kill. I can think, and I'm sure there are various versions of a Batman film where Batman kills that could be really good movies, and really work and have no contradiction in them whatsoever. In fact, I think the Burton movies are pretty good, and I believe Batman kills a couple of times, or his no kill rule isn't even mentioned in those movies. So it's not about, and half the people who are offended by Batman killing in Zack Snyder's universe, um half those people, what's interesting to me is I don't even believe they are comic book, that they've read the comic books. I believe they only knew that no kill rule because of the Nolan movies, and Nolan put such an emphasis on Batman not killing. So there are different versions of the character depending on the person writing it. Now, do I agree, as I said, with Zack Snyder's motivation for having them not kill, or having him kill, which is, as soon as somebody tells me you can't do something with a character, I want to do it. No, because that's just like some edgelord shit. But I'm not offended by it. It's just dumb. Anyway, let's finish this the last bit of this interview.
Because I want to see what happens. And they go like, well, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. I'm like, well, that's just like you're protecting your God in a weird way, right? You're making your God irrelevant if he can't be in that situation. He has to now deal with that.
Yeah.
If he does do that, what does that mean? What does it tell you? But does he stand up to it? Can he survive that? Right? As a God, as your God, can Batman survive that?
I never thought that was canon, that Batman can't kill, but
well, for a lot of people it is.
That seems ridiculous given the circumstances in which he operates.
Yeah, well,
so Joe Rogan is the perfect example of your average person, right? A lot of people don't know this shit about these characters. A lot of people really don't know this crap about these characters. And they don't care. They just want to go in and watch a fun movie. Or they want to go in and watch a movie. That's it. They don't care about these stupid little rules that us fans, argue and debate over all day, right? So Joe Rogan's there like, I didn't know Batman didn't kill, right? I didn't know he had a no kill rule. That's your average fucking person. That's why the Burton movies were beloved by people, because people didn't know that shit. And so again, I just think it's like it's really like I've kind of got to the point where I'm a little bit ashamed, not as specifically on this Batman no killing backlash, because at least that has some, you know, I get that to some extent, and maybe a little bit of the Superman backlash, a little bit of backlash, a little bit of criticism. It's okay to be critical of a movie you watch. You don't have to just sit there as like a fanboy and love everything they give you. But I am really ashamed of the nerd community in the recent years. I always used to think the nerd community, the comic book fans, were the coolest people. I used to remember back in the day watching those Kevin Smith movies about rats, and thinking, yeah, those are nerds. Those are my people, the cool people. And now I look at these nerds on the fucking internet, you know, and I'm like, I don't recognize these guys. These aren't the guys I used to hang out with at comic book shops, talking cool shit. These are some fucking nerds, man. The nerds who are afraid of fucking women, whose masculinity is constantly, they're so insecure in their own masculinity that they think they're constantly under attack by fucking movies. So I don't recognize these guys, man. It's been years since Snyder that I don't even care anymore, lol. It was an iteration in a long line of iterations, tired of the same talking points and fan wars. DCU, here we come. Right, exactly. Hopefully DCU will be better, but as I said, regarding the current fan base and their backlash over what Zack Snyder is even saying in this interview, it's so fucking juvenile, And to that extent, he is right. To that extent, I'm actually glad that he kind of rattled what we have come to believe of those characters, because hopefully for the people who are smarter, fans, it actually made them better people and made them look at these characters as what they are. They're just fucking characters. Yes, they mean something to us. And dude, I cannot tell you what the DC characters mean to me. They literally saved my life at one point. These DC characters, you know, so they're very, very important to me. But still, that does not give me some kind of weird ownership over them. That does not mean I get to gatekeep how people interpret them or what people have to say about them. They are still just comic book characters. And there's a whole world and life outside of these comic book characters that is very, very important, very, very significant, and much more worthy of our focus. If I am to be inspired by Superman, it is not to sit around try to uh, argue and defend or try and push some version of Superman that I enjoy, right, onto other people. That's not the inspiration I should take from Superman. The inspiration I should take from Superman is to be a good person. That's the inspiration I take from the character. To be a good person, to be a generous person, to help out somebody, that I see that is in need. Right, when I come across somebody who clearly doesn't have uh, somebody to rely on in a particular moment, I can be there for them. And that's what I have taken from Superman as a character, as my favorite superhero. And that's how I live my life. And I'm not trying to make myself out to be some, like, whatever. For the most part, I don't live up to to the example that Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, and and Martin Luther King, and Noam Chomsky, and all of my heroes that I've, whether fictional or real, I don't live up to their example as often as I would like to. But in terms of what I take away from them, that is what I take away. Not, oh, I've got to come on and force people to think about these characters in the same way as I do. Take what they give you and let that inspire you. So how I feel. Um, that's why I'm incredibly excited for James Gunn's Superman. He's my favorite superhero, and we need him in the mainstream more than ever. We need his fun, his emotion, his inspiration to unite us more. Yeah, I hope he does. But if he doesn't, that's fine as well. You know, I really do hope that I get the feeling that it's going to be much more in line with the Superman that I enjoy. The funny thing is, I still want them to take another stab at that realistic, putting Superman in a more realistic universe. Um, Even though I'm glad that James Gunn maybe might move to a more comic booky version of Superman, I still have this desire, like, oh man, it would be cool to try and do a grounded version of Superman, but still stick to more of the morals, like him being an actual, like the moral paragon of morality or whatever that he's supposed to be. But whatever. But yeah, I'm not excited because I'll tell you the truth, Superwise. I'm not excited about this new Superman movie because I'm not excited about any comic book movies anymore. I'm so fed up of the bullshit. I'm so fed up of, oh, they've made Perry White black. Oh, you know, a million fucking videos on the fact that, like, Perry White is black in this movie. Like, I don't give a fuck. Is the movie good or not? That's all we should be concerned about. Whether it's got some, everyone's got political beliefs. Some people believe in, non-binary people. Some people believe that there's only two genders. Some people believe in, various different things. Just let everyone live their fucking life already. No matter what their fucking beliefs are. And if they just look at the film, is it good? Is it bad? That's it. That's all I give a fuck about. Anything in between that is just noise for me. And speaking of good or bad movies, I think it is about time we do move on to. I think that's it. I don't know if he says anything else. I can quickly go through this, see if he says anything else.
And all the weapons.
Don't read
that he
the
has.
comments right now. Don't read the comments.
Yeah.
This is
That seems ridiculous.
It's well, I mean, and there's this huge so in Dark Knight Returns, there's a scene where, and I copied it kind of in Batman versus Superman, where he grabs the M60, he busts through the wall, and he grabs the M60, and he's like, the guy's like, in the comic book, he's like got this kid, the mutant has this kid with a gun to his head, and he's like, I'll kill him, I swear I'll do it. And Batman says, I believe you. And he shoots him straight in the head because it's like a no-win scenario. It's like the Kobayashi Maru of, the Kobayashi Maru is that in Star Trek, it's that test they put Kirk through where there's a no-win, right? Because they want to see how you'll react, right? So they say, okay, we're gonna make a scenario, a test scenario where you don't win, where there's no way to win. And in that situation, we find out what you would do in a no-win situation, because if you're going to be the commander of this spaceship, you're going to be in situations where.
This literally has nothing to do with this scenario of the Batman movie. I don't know why he's talking about this Star Trek thing.
It's.
But what I was thinking, guys, is I'm gonna start a new stream. My bro is fatigued. I get it. The burnout from the tireless fan wars and toxicity just brings it all down. A couple years ago, I would have engaged in the conversation, but now I just enjoy what I enjoy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying about it. It's like I'm still gonna watch these movies, but I just wish I could go back to that moment of like the Dark Knight and the Avengers. You remember when those movies came out and everyone was just together? We were just all like, yeah, this is dope, And to be fair, like even I was like a little bit like I remember even in the Dark Knight Rises, and Man of Steel and stuff like that. Maybe I don't think I was ever a toxic fan. I personally don't, but I certainly think I was kind of, I criticized movies because I like movies, right? And so I would say, like, here's why I dislike this movie. And some of why I dislike, for instance, The Dark Knight Rises is because it wasn't the movie that I wanted to see, and I think that was unfair, like looking back, at that movie. 100% miss those eras, simpler times, yeah. Now I look back at that movie and I'm like, it wasn't as bad as I was making out, like it certainly was not the best of that trilogy, but it wasn't as bad as I was making out. And it's just so I look back at those times and yes, I'm glad that I didn't have a soapbox, from which to, like, like I wasn't a YouTuber back then, and I didn't, like it wasn't like I could go on YouTube and like argue endlessly about why The Dark Knight Rises doesn't work and why it's not as good as the first two movies. It's like, it's bullshit. Who cares what I think? If there are people out there who enjoyed Dark Knight Rises, let them fucking enjoy it. Why do I have to convince them it's a fucking bad movie? So that's my kind of thing on it. That being said, I'm going to be ranking the MCU movies because I thought I'm going to rank them for the last time. But actually, I'm going to separate the videos. I'm going to make this a dedicated one just to what Zack Snyder's saying so that it doesn't go on too long. And then I'm going to do the MCU ranking after. And anybody who wants to join the MCU ranking, they can join Superwise, Anzo, anybody, or if you don't, that's also fine. Then I just get to trash the MCU with absolute abandon. But I will be giving people a vote if they join. Because sometimes I don't give people a vote, but I'm going to give them a vote this time if you join. Great stream, Nerd Man. Really contributed something interesting to the conversation. Oh, thanks, man. But yeah, let me finish what he says, and then we'll call it a day. But I don't know why he's talking about like Star Trek. It has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation.
It's life or death, and especially when there's no tricking it, right? There's no tricking death in this case. And the famous thing with Captain Kirk is he went and hacked the machine and made it so there was a solution.
Yeah.
And so that was his response to the no-win situation, was create a scenario where he wins, which is cool, which is a cool character, that's a cool character move. But like, that's kind of how I felt. That's what they would say, don't do that to Batman. Don't put him in a no-win situation because we don't want to see him lose. Like, we can't see him lose. He has to maintain this godlike status. And that's what the cool thing about Frank Miller. Frank Miller said, fuck it. I want to see who this guy really, like if a guy, so you're saying to me that I've got a gun to this kid's head, you're Batman. There's no move. There's no trick. There's no throwing the batarang. There's no a dust ball to distract me. Like I've just got to pull the trigger and I kill this kid. So you're saying in that scenario, Batman, what's Batman supposed to do? Right.
Right.
Yeah. He's going to lay down his gun. What's he going to do? Like it's the guy says to him, I'll do it. I swear it.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. Let me see what he says. Jay Casali. I feel like if Batman started to murder, he'd be no better than the guy that killed his parents or the criminals he locks up in Arkham. Yeah, okay. I mean, but like, look, the whole point is that this is a fantastical world of imagination, right? And different people join the conversation about these characters. And if Zack Snyder feels like he doesn't want his Batman to have a no-kill rule, I don't think that he needs to go through all of this mental gymnastics, to justify that his Batman kills. He just has to say, my Batman kills. That's it. Unless he's really saying something profound about the character, I don't get all of this, like, oh, and they said this, and, what if he was in this situation? It's like, this is all bullshit because, in fact, there are a million ways, given that he's fucking Batman, that he could deal with the scenario that Zack Snyder's just talking about right now, right? There's actually a million different ways we've seen in comics of how he's dealt with situations like this without killing the person. So this is all just bullshit. This is all just smoke and mirrors. But at the same time, if he wants his Batman to kill, we can just go, I don't like this version of Batman. I'm not going to support this version of Batman. And that's it. And then We could go back to the Batman that we do like, the Batman that doesn't kill in the cartoons, or the Batman who doesn't kill. Especially with Batman, like with other characters, I'm like, I can see people being a bit more defensive because there aren't that many versions of like Shazam that you can see in film. There aren't that many versions of Wonder Woman that you can see in film. So I can understand people being a little bit more defensive of those characters. But with Batman, it's like, if you don't like a version, just watch another version. There's no, it's not like his popularity is going to go down. He's like, he is the most popular superhero in the world. I don't care what anyone says. People can say Spider-Man is blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Batman is the most popular superhero. And the reason that I'm saying he's the most popular superhero is not because, some poll was taken where, people said, oh, Batman's my favorite superhero. I'm talking about how much this person, a character, has entered into the pop culture zeitgeist. How many films reference him, how many characters are based after him, how many, just a number of different elements in which Batman clearly is one of the basic archetypes of what a superhero is and what people think about when they think about superheroes, right? Um, and how, not only Batman, but his whole universe, whether it be the Joker, whether it be the Batmobile, whether it be, a number of different other aspects about the character, his villains have become just these things that are constantly referenced and thought about, when it comes to movies, when it comes to games, when it comes to, anything. Um, Batman is for me the most important and popular superhero. And so I don't think anything Zack Snyder could do could harm that. So it doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter in the end of the day what he thinks or what he does with his version of Batman. The fact is, Batman killed, you know. And to be fair to Zack Snyder in this, he says, can he recover from it? And I think that when he killed, and you saw that he killed, I don't think it made a hell of a lot of sense that he was killing in Batman v Superman. But does he recover from it in Zack Snyder's Justice League? Does he reintegrate the character into the character that we know and love in Zack Snyder's Justice League? Actually, I think he does. I think he achieves it quite well, actually, and he does kind of a similar thing with Superman in that sense. So yeah, it was his artistic vision in the end of the day, and we're not children anymore. I think we can accept different people's points of view on things, and that's what this world, generally is missing at the moment: the ability to accept that other people have a different point of view and still be able to get on with them. And that's it for me. Uh, Bruce Wayne, the suit, the car, the entire cave, everything I built, I created all of this because I didn't want any more innocent people to die. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I like the Batman that doesn't kill. That's why I like the Batman. It's one of my now favorite Batman movies. Bruce only became Batman so he could rid Gotham of the criminal element and protect the people, so they won't have to go through what he went through with his parents. I agree. Yeah, I agree. All of those things. I actually think it's what makes Batman very interesting. It's that he's in every way he operates in a similar way to how his villains operate. The only thing that separates him is the fact that he doesn't kill, and that's what makes him a great anti-hero. Um, he has just one rule. It's like Leon in the Hitman in the film Leon. The only reason we respect Leon in that film is because he has that one rule that separates him from all other hitmen: no women, no children. And he goes after anyone who goes after women and children. Like and he protects the child because he's like, there's okay, we're hitmen, I understand that, but he has a code of honor that separates him from the other more monstrous hitmen. So that's the reason why we respect that character. That's the reason why we respect that because he has a rule that separates him from the likes of Scarecrow and all of those kind of things. But that doesn't mean that's the only way that character can be written. I think that that's a really good and important aspect. But if somebody wants to do something slightly different, then they're allowed to, and we're allowed not to like it.
I believe you is perfect.
Yeah, I believe you. And
I
then
believe you. Yeah.
So I'm just like, that's where like Frank Deakins takes Batman and just tears him in half.
Yeah.
And you've got to now come out the other.
But the thing that Zack Snyder's missing about that scene is that Frank Miller establishes within that comic that Batman won't kill. And then he takes him, from the point of I won't kill to a point where he puts the reader and Batman in a situation where you're like questioning what is the choice that Batman's going to make. And that's the important thing about that. Is Batman going to choose to save this child's life or choose to stick to his rule of no killing? Right? So that is not what he did in Batman v Superman. He did not corner Batman into a situation where Batman had to make a choice. Batman was just killing freely in that movie. He just was a Batman who killed. And I think rather than trying to intellectualize it the way that Zack Snyder is trying to, he could just say, hey, my Batman killed. I didn't see the significance or the importance of that to the character in the same way that some other people do. And that's it. I think all this thesis of Batman kills, I believe twice in that comic. He kills the Joker and he kills this person. Zack does know there's a panel in that comic where he breaks a gun and says, these are the weapons of the enemy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he's not missing the point of that comic, but I think he's trying to use it to justify things that he did in his movie, which are completely justifiable. There's such a thing as freedom of speech, freedom of thought. You don't need to do all of this to justify that you wanted your Batman to kill. He did not kill the Joker. He snapped his own neck to frame him with the police. I see. That's the thing about that point in the comic, right? Some people interpret that as Batman has gone insane and is trying to so the insanity has taken over Batman's mind, and in his mind he's trying to create a reality in which he didn't kill the Joker, but in fact it was him who snapped the Joker's neck. It wasn't the Joker who just snapped his own neck, because how can you just turn your head around and snap your own neck? It doesn't make sense. So people interpret that, Jay Castle, as that's like Batman having some kind of hallucination that the Joker snapped his own neck when actually it was him who did it. But you're right. Like, technically speaking, if you read on the page, maybe it was Joker just trying to frame Batman. He still throws a a batarang through the man's eye, though. So he throws a batarang into the Joker's eye. That's pretty hardcore. I mean, that's going above and beyond what Batman usually does. Um, so there's that.
The other side of that, and Batman is still the hero. Batman still does the right thing. He maintains his code, he doesn't change, but like our perception of him changes. And I think that's like I have run afoul of, but a lot of the fandom I feel like who have like gotten to the same place I have with the characters where they need to test them to like, and I feel like the characters, it's been my experience that the characters have not let us down. Like these myths have not let us down. You put them to the ragged edge into that scenario and they come out the other side and you're like, fuck yeah, there's a reason why Superman is Superman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like he can handle it. He can fucking take it because he's so iconic. Like you see like the red S, you go anywhere in the world with that Superman t-shirt on anywhere. And you say to any kid, like, what's this? Oh, that's Superman. Yeah, exactly. Like, that means something. That's like fucking cool.
Well, not only that, it's one of our first ever superheroes.
Literally.
Yeah. I mean, just think of the name. It's so unoriginal. Superman.
it's the most, you couldn't think of that today. That's
it's
not
so ridiculous.
You can't do that today.
I know. If you tried to come up with a Superman today, everybody shut the
Superman?
fuck
That's
up.
horrible.
That's your guy?
Yeah.
Come on, man. We've got so many different interesting
but
characters.
That's why the Trinity, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman are so powerful because they're literally, obviously, the origin concept, right? Wonder Woman,
literally, yeah.
Batman is the only anomaly because he's like a Batman. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like,
what does he doesn't even have powers?
Yeah, he's just like he's half bat. Like, what is that?
He's just got a lot of money.
Yeah, he's got a lot of money. Yeah, that was like my favorite thing we did in Justice League where Bruce says that line about like when Flash says like, "What's your power?" and he's like, "I'm rich." I always thought that was cool.
Kind of crazy that no one decided to genetically experiment on a Batman.
So yeah, like in the end of the day, I don't think people are really offended by what Snyder saying. He's not saying Batman should kill at all. It's not the claim that is being made in this. He's thinking about testing these characters, putting them to the edge of what we expect them, and seeing how they thrive that they make him do that. And I think that translated to has characters. I don't know if that's what he did in his movie, but that's certainly what Matt Reeves did. What's wrong with my mic? Your mic. Tell me what's wrong with it. So I think he's making a bigger thing. He's not saying every maker now on should make Batman. That's clearly not the same. And that's the backlash that people have. And it's the same backlash we'll have over Suicide versus the Justice League. It makes fucking sense. Less static. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Making you sound like flat for okay. Interesting. All right. Well, maybe that's a good time to then close this off. So what I'm going to do is, guys, if you want to join me for my MCU ranking, I'm going to, do the MCU ranking when I come back in maybe like half an hour. And I'll see if anyone can join me. But, okay, it's back to normal now. Okay, good stuff. Thank you for letting me know. So I'm gonna do the MCU ranking with anybody who wants to join me, and we're gonna try not to it's just going to be a fun, enjoyable kind of space to talk about the movies. Um, but yeah, like just to say about the final part, since we're back now and it's normal. Again, I think this reminds me of the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. It's like that's what he's talking about. You know, the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League is a perfect example of what Zack Snyder's talking about. It's like, why can't we put these heroes in scenarios, that kind of push the envelope with them a little bit and see if they can survive it, And that's what they did with Justice League versus the Suicide Squad, and everyone went apeshit. And it's no better or no worse than any of the other stories to these games like Injustice Gods Among Us. God knows what they would have said about Injustice Gods Among Us if it came out, today, right? As if, and think about this. Injustice Gods Among Us came out before the Wonder Woman film. Wonder Woman hadn't had a movie since the 70s. So that was one of the biggest mainstream introductions to Wonder Woman since the 70s series. And Wonder Woman still ended up surviving that complete deconstruction of her character where it didn't even make sense. She was just plain fucking evil in that game. And most people were like, oh, like they were broadly familiar with Wonder Woman, they were like, wow, is that what she's about? Is that, but she survived it because the film came out just some years, a couple of years later. And then now everyone is like, yeah, of course, that's Wonder Woman. We know that that's Wonder Woman, right? So all of these, things, you might not like certain, like they killed Kevin Conroy or whatever. They killed Kevin Conroy's Batman. So what? I mean, it's gonna survive. It's gonna come back. The Justice League are gonna come back in the games. It's not the final, word on it's almost as if it was the final story of the Justice League. The only reason that we're never probably going to get a story of the Justice League again is because you guys keep criticizing and bashing everything they do so much that they're just going to quit doing it eventually and just not even bother, because you guys are never going to be happy no matter what. We are living in the absolute best time to be comic book fans ever in the history of ever. In terms of all the films, all the comics that are being produced, everything being produced for you guys, and you're never happy with it. So, in the end of the day, you hate everything. You hate the Batman. You hate the Aquaman. You hate Shazam. You hate Wonder Woman cameos. You hate like this, that, and DC is going to get killed and buried. And you hate the new James Gunn Superman, like before you've even seen it. It's going to get dead and buried, and it's going to be your fault. And then you're going to be like, oh, why aren't they making any DC movies anymore? Why? Well, all of these characters I love, they're never making any movies. They don't make any cartoons. They don't make any video games because you fucking bankrupted them, you dickheads. Nerd culture is still mad at Snyder. Like, what the fuck? Right, exactly. Comic book fans equals complain and consume. Right, exactly. They're fucking marks. It's like the same guys who are like complain, like, dude. That's why I'm saying I don't even enjoy like being a fan anymore of this material. It's really, really like it's tough, when everything you kind of that comes out that you watch and you love, or at least you think, oh, that was fun enough, or whatever, and you just have to deal with just not even. It's not the criticism of the movie. It's the fact that they don't even try anymore. It's like they're just like, oh, it's trash, it's lame, it's this, it's that, and they don't give reasons, they don't do anything, and or they give some kind of really juvenile, oh, this was like with the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League, oh, they killed the Arkham Batman, and and all of this kind of, and you're just like, it's called Suicide Squad kill the Justice League. That was the whole concept of the game, right? Like, just like Injustice, Gods Among Us, right? The whole concept of the game is you're looking at an Injustice League. Now, the lesson that maybe Warner Brothers and the games division should take from that is maybe we want to see our superheroes for once just be superheroes in some of these games. It would be nice rather than them always being the fucking villains. But beside that, it is still called Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. And it is no big surprise that, like Batman is going to get killed in it, or any of the Justice League are going to get killed in it. And quite frankly, them complaining that, oh, it's disrespectful to Kevin Conroy is completely fucking idiotic, because in the end of the day, Kevin Conroy didn't know he was gonna fucking die when he was voicing the game, and he didn't seem to have a problem with his Batman being killed in the game, so why the fuck should anybody else? Plus, it turns out they were all clones of the Justice League anyway. It wasn't actually the real Justice League, so it's fucking bullshit. Like you do with the MCU. How do you mean? What do you mean by that? I need to know what you mean by that, and then I can respond to it. It's hard being a fan of superhero genre, in especially after post 2016, the left wing versus right wing political culture war infesting the superhero genre, endless rage bait, and self insert for clickbait. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you're gonna see the hate, bro. Oh, you are gonna see the hate. Don't worry. We're moving on to um, our ranking of the MCU movies. In fact, I'm gonna give you a little taster. I'm just gonna give you a little taster on so what you're in for. You wanted the hate. You wanted the real. You want to bring out hate. Will the real nerd man please stand up? You ready for some MCU hate, guys? All right, let's go. Okay, so we will be doing our MCU ranking because I'm tired of talking about Zack Snyder. Let's let's all come together and do something, celebrate comic book movies the way we should by hating on the MCU. All right, so here is my every MCU movie, TV show, I believe, which I'm going to rank. There should be one other level to this, which is at a row below. Haven't seen. Haven't seen. Yeah. So yeah, since I believe the MCU is pretty much the McDonald's of film franchises, I've decided to name my categories after the McDonald's products. The first we haven't seen. Right at the bottom, we've got cheeseburger. Um, uh, Above that, we have a new McDonald's burger. You know, one of their experimental burgers that they bring out every year that sucks. As overrated as a Big Mac, because Big Macs are actually disgusting. I don't know why anybody likes them. We've got Happy Meal, which is always a nice delight because it's got a little toy in it that you can get. So it's kind of like okay, good to okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Why have I got this like wrong way around? Yeah. So we have mid, which is quarter pounder, because quarter pounders they're all right. They're nice to eat. Then you've got the Happy Meal with the toy. It's good. The best thing about that McDonald's has going for it is either their McShake or their apple pies. So I've got McShake as the highest level. This is a really good movie. And then we've got the top level, which is the absolute best of the MCU, which none of them are as good as Shazam 2 or the Batman, but they are great. So those are my levels. Um, and I'm gonna do, let's say, MCU is full of overrated mid-tier origin films for B to Z list characters. Hey, I didn't say it, Onzo. That was 1610, man. I didn't say that shit. Marvel Netflix over MCU. That is actually, look, Marvel Netflix. I would say the Daredevil show is the best thing that the MCU has ever done, and it wasn't really the MCU. It was Netflix, but like that is seriously a fucking good show. Like that is the best superhero show I've ever seen. Period. At where it's not mocking or making fun of superheroes. Like The Boys is very good, but that's like kind of making fun of superheroes. This is actually a superhero show. So Marvel Netflix. And then we've got Thor 1 and 2 equals mid as fuck. 1610 man says. So just to give you a little taster of what's to come, I'm gonna rank the first, let's say like the first three movies, and then I'll be starting another stream to dedicate to just this MCU ranking. Okay, so let's start off with. Should we start off with the bottom? We'll go from the newest to the newest ones to the oldest ones. I think that's the better way to do it. We'll go from new to old. All right. So we start with Echo. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of Echo. I watched maybe the first two episodes. So I could put it in I haven't seen, but I'm gonna put it in cheeseburger because I don't really have a lot to say about it. It's like it just wasn't very engaging. I was expecting something more along the lines of the Daredevil Netflix show, and I guess that is a very very hard show to kind of copy. But I know that this Echo show was supposed to be their version of a R-rated kind of MCU street level kind of thing. But one of the problems is with a lot of these new characters is they're not iconic, and they're not iconic for a reason. It's because there's nothing really specifically iconic about them. And it's sad because you've got like this deaf girl who's I believe is Native American, which I do, I like representation in comic book movies and the comic book space. I think no, I don't think it's important. I don't think it's like a political thing of importance. I just think, hey, you know, these people have worked hard to become actors. They deserve jobs as well. Like it's that simple for me. I'm happy for anybody, who's worked hard, especially if they're from, uh, a minority group who actually gets to fulfill their dreams and make it into making TV shows and making films. And it's terrible for me that half the time, these very young people like the kids from Avatar and stuff like that, who finally get to make this TV show that's probably been their dream their whole life, you know, um, they have just this hateful, spiteful fandom that just makes it a nightmare for them. Unfortunately for Echo and the girl that's in this show, it's just that this character is a nothing character. Why not have a deaf character who actually is a cool superhero? I'd really like to see that. It makes sense with Daredevil, like he's blind, right? But his other senses have been made much more acute because of the nature of the chemicals that blinded him. This one doesn't even make sense. Like she's deaf, but there's nothing. She's not given any extra abilities or anything that would justify her, this deafness being made into a kind of strength, in the way that Daredevil is. And also, it was just like not very interesting, like the whole family dynamic, what happens to Kingpin, and all of it. Just, I wasn't offended by it. I was just like, this is just not like, it's not even like the MCU I used to hate on, where, I was just like, oh, it's just over quippy and too much comedy and, not taking things seriously and the villains are whack and all of that kind of stuff. That I could actually handle because, you could sit down and, turn your brain off and kind of enjoy those movies. This is just something completely different, off the wall. I don't know what it is. And I didn't enjoy any aspect of this too. It was just like watching paint dry. The only thing that this was better than is probably Dune 2 in terms of keeping my interest. It was very, very boring. So yeah, Echo equals wannabe Marvel Netflix probably should have been on Netflix, lol. Yeah, I didn't really get that. And only iconic Marvel characters equals Spider-Man, X-Men, and Fantastic Four. The rights that MCU didn't have during their hype saga. Um, I'll add the Incredible Hulk to that. I think Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. To be fair to Iron Man and Captain America, I think they've now justified their position to be able to stand on Spider-Man. I think Captain America specifically has always been able to stand with Spider-Man and the X-Men as one of the best things that Marvel ever created. If you go back to some of those Captain America comics, they're actually very good. And then certainly Iron Man, who was trash, literal fucking trash before the movies, has more than made up for it by what he's done in the MCU. But yeah, outside of that, like those are the characters that I would like them to focus on. I think they should focus on Iron Man. They should focus um, uh, on on Captain America, Spider Man, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. Build universes around them. All of these extra characters. It's just like, yeah, sometimes it works. The Guardians of the Galaxy work, but a lot of the time it does not work. Like, who gives a fuck about Shang-Chi? Who gives a fuck about Captain Marvel? Half of these characters that they've brought out, the only ones that really worked were fucking, the Guardians of the Galaxy that weren't like established characters. Ant-Man, no one gives a fuck. You know, it's like just stop making movies about them. I accept Thor. I'll accept Thor. You know, because he's an integral part of the Avengers. But really, do we need 24 movies? Like, I don't need it. He's never been good as a solo act. He's always been better in the ensemble movies. So yeah, that's my feelings towards it. I think you're absolutely you've hit the nail on the head. They have these central characters that they really, really should explore much more. You know, Spider-Man, X-Men, Hulk, Fantastic Four, because they have a reason for being. Their actual stories aren't, you know, they're iconic for a reason. You know, the way the Hulk kind of mimics the kind of story of Jekyll and Hyde, you know, Dr. Jekyll and Hyde. You can see that there's something in that story that goes that is universal, you know, and that has been explored in literature before. It's not just something that, you know, like came up with just the Hulk. You know, Spider-Man, the X-Men, certainly, you know, all of those characters have something within them. And as I said, Iron Man himself, you know, that whole thing of, you know, he was a merchant of war, and then, you know, he ends up being captured by people who are using his very weapons to terrorize people, and he has a change of conscience because of that. That's an interesting story. That's a story I can roll with on a basic level. That is a story that has a universal appeal. I don't see what Captain Marvel has to do with anything in the world. You know, I don't get it. You know, maybe that's just me, which is kind of spoilers for where I'm going with Captain Marvel. But yeah, Echo, complete cheeseburger. I mean, there are worse TV shows. There really are. It's not the worst, but um, in the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Um, haven't seen. I just couldn't. I couldn't put myself through the Marvels. I didn't go and watch it. Um, Secret Invasion. I watched the first episode and I thought it was absolute a nothing burger, complete cheeseburger. Nothing of interest there. I'm not going to go into it because I haven't watched the whole series, but I just was like, I know where this is going. I'm not spending 5 hours of my life watching this. It was just completely uninteresting. Um, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, this is a movie that um, I think is it's either a McShake or it's um, just below the Batman and Shazam 2. Specifically, not as good as Shazam 2 or the Batman. I really like this movie. I'm gonna put it right up there. I thought this is one of the best comic book movies I'd seen in a long time, and specifically the parts about the parts about the rat, the raccoon or whatever he is. I forget his name because these characters are so meaningless to me that you know I forget their names. But um, the stuff that was the more focused on the journey of how that rat became like you know, like a sentient, you know, being. Um, and the stuff with the high evolutionary, I thought was absolutely excellent. I thought his performance was excellent. He was a real dastardly, disgusting, despicable villain for once. And I love my villains in movies. Like, often the villain can make all the difference to me in these movies, and so I really enjoyed that aspect. The place that I would take it down to McShake, the only reason I'll take it down to McShake is I didn't enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy part of the movie that much. I thought it was the same James Gunn bullshit with the jokes and the, forced humor and all of that kind of stuff. I really just don't enjoy those characters that much. I enjoyed the set designs of, like, they went to this weird um planet or whatever, or no, sorry, this weird space station, where they had this weird goopy type technology and stuff like that. I love that set design aspect of the story, how things looked. It looked beautiful. But in terms of, these rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't really find them that fun. I've never understood why people are like so amazed by them. But I did really like the, this story about the rat and his friends, being caged and being experimented on. I thought that was really kind of interesting stuff, and that was the main body of the. Here we go. Who is it? Yeah, that was the main body of the story and the main heart of the story. So in that sense, I really did like it. I'm trying to get Shifty on. Here we go. Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can
Hey,
hear
Shifty.
you. You're kind of staticky.
Can you hear me? It should get better in a second. I'm gonna close some of the things. Can you hear me properly now?
I can hear you.
Staticky?
Yeah. Well, you cleared up. You're good.
Okay. Okay, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I think it's because I started trying to close things or whatever, and that's where it got a bit staticky. So before I ask you about the James Gunn, sorry, the Guardians of the Galaxy 3, just going to read these comments. James Gunn's MCU Guardians franchise, magic in a bottle for its time. And damn, where is everyone else on the panel? You can join Arkham if you're interested in this. This is my last ever ranking of the MCU. So, Shifty, what did you think of Guardians of the Galaxy?
I liked it. I don't know if I liked it as
Three.
much as I don't like it as much as the first one. I think it's better in part two. It's way better than the Christmas special. I think it ended the trilogy pretty well. I'm interested in seeing where they go from here with the Guardians and especially Peter Quill. But I do have issues with it. Like I still don't understand why they had to CG the dog. That he was extremely distracting. I think they probably could have had a real dog and just worked around that. I liked the effects they had for Adam Warlock, but I don't necessarily care for the way
I
they
forgot
portray.
about Adam Warlock. He wasn't good. Yeah.
I really like the dynamic between him and his mom, though. I think they had a pretty good look. It was an okay movie. The Rocket story stood out the most. It was one of the better MCU films, I think, for sure.
I always forget. I always just call him the little rat because I can't ever remember any of these characters' names because to be honest, they don't mean a hell of a lot to me, and I never found those movies like the way that other people seem to be really. I think it was really like a breath of fresh air, those movies, to a lot of people, and I never got that sense of like them being that special, but I actually thought this one was very special. I really liked this, and I kind of guess it made me appreciate the other two a little bit more, but Rocket was always my favorite character, and the tree with Groot and Rocket. I always liked them and their dynamic. But the problem I had with this film, it was just simple. I just didn't enjoy the Guardian story, and I thought the Guardian story was a little bit messier,
Yeah.
than the Groot story and the High Evolutionary. I thought the High Evolutionary was fantastic. Everything that happened
Yeah.
with Groot was fantastic. I couldn't wait for the High Evolutionary to get his ass kicked, and they, really did that in a great way at the end. But I honestly just, a lot of the Guardian stuff lost me. And then there was that bit where Peter Quill dies, and I was like, oh, that's a cool thing. And then
Yeah.
they just brought him back to life, and it was just like, in a stupid way, because he was dead. It wasn't like, do you know what I mean? Like, he was floating in space, dead. You know.
The High Evolutionary.
Um,
That's man. Maybe top 3 villain for the MCU. At least top 5. He was great.
he was top. Yeah, I would go top 5. High Evolutionary. I think he was better than Kang, personally. If I was to rate between Kang and him, I'd give it to him, because he was more effective in his role, in that
Yeah.
movie.
And plus, he wasn't stuck in a bad movie like Quantum Mania. So
Right, exactly. Which isn't, the guy's fault, but yeah, blah blah. Let's talk. So 1610 really hates MCU, bro. Guardians equals Z-list comic book of random cosmic space BS writing by junkies. Wow, okay. All right, so let's do the next one. I think I'm going to do this in 2 parts because I've been going on for very long. Here we go. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. What did you think of it first? I'll see what you think of it.
that's my least favorite MCU film. So that's bottom of the barrel for me.
So it would be in cheeseburger for you.
It would.
I've compared them to McDonald's, like the menu of McDonald's, because I feel like the MCU is the McDonald's of comic book movies. It's like, McDonald's is nice. You know what I'm saying? But it's not gourmet. You know what I'm saying? It's
nothing nice about that movie. I really hated it. What films did you already rank? I can't.
I've ranked Echo, I ranked Secret Invasion, and I ranked The Marvels. And The Marvels I haven't seen. Secret Invasion I watched 1 episode, and Echo I watched 2 episodes. So I ranked it off basically what I saw.
The Marvels is actually pretty fun. I mean, there's a really stupid secret element to the film. I won't divulge what their gimmick is, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I think Monica is kind of underwritten. Her powers isn't really developed. They weren't really developed. Her backstory.
Very clear.
When she came around in WandaVision, so I think she should have had a little bit more time to develop before she got bumped up to the movies. But yeah, it was pretty fun, I thought.
Well, I've ranked those movies already, so I'm not going to go back. But from now on, I'll take your ranking into consideration.
Okay.
Quantumania for me. Look, maybe because I heard how bad it was, that when I finally watched it, I was like maybe a little bit pleasantly surprised. But I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes out. I honestly don't. I think it's the best Ant-Man movie. Honestly, I didn't particularly enjoy Ant-Man 1. I hated the second one. So yeah, I thought they did okay. Like there were elements that were touching in it with him and his daughter and stuff like that. The villain was much better than the villains they've had in other Ant-Man movies, even though I felt like that villain was a bit too good for Ant-Man. Like they should have saved him for a more compelling hero to go up against.
Yeah.
But I would put it
My,
in.
my issue with it is
I don't
the whole
know.
series is it's missed potential. The whole thing. Like Ant-Man 1, I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked it. Second one was whatever. I
It's
I,
forgettable.
I always I always wanted this series to at least bring something on the level of the wonder I experienced when I saw. I mean, I Shrunk the Kids as a kid. I never got that.
Hmm.
They should have brought that. They should have brought that in eight by 1,000. They had all the tools to do it, and they didn't. And now in the third one, they bring it to
Mm.
the quantum realm, and it's just special effects, fighting and stuff. And this, I mean, it's just it's hollow, and you can see. I mean, hell, there
Yeah.
was reports coming out. Michael Douglas was just bored on the set, and he was just ad libbing, and he didn't want to be there. Bill Murray looks like he doesn't want to be there. I don't particularly think Michelle Pfeiffer is a great actress, and she couldn't carry it. Her part.
Wow.
I
Really?
the only
She's a
standout
great actress. What are you talking about? That's
I,
crazy. You don't know Michelle Pfeiffer's a great actress.
I never liked her, but I think Jonathan Majors was a
Interesting.
standout. He was caught in a terrible film. It was just it
Yeah.
was a bad film.
Yeah, I mean, on second viewing, when I watched it the second time, I kind of was like, yeah, this is why I don't like the MCU. A lot of the MCU tropes. Not that I don't like the films, but some of the MCU tropes that just get a bit tiring. And so I got a little bit of that on the second viewing. I didn't finish it the second time I tried to watch it. Um, all in all, maybe I agree with you, cheeseburger, but maybe I'd put it a little bit higher to, one of those new McDonald's burgers that they try and experiment with, but that suck.
The Arch
You just
Deluxe.
have to go back to the classic. So you just have
Yeah.
to go back to the classics. The what? The what?
The Arch Deluxe.
Yeah, exactly, like the Arch Deluxe or something like that. Yes. So
I wish they'd
I'll
had.
put it in new McDonald.
I wish they didn't recast his daughter. I thought that was. I mean, I can understand they wanted somebody that looked younger, but I I think that was a mistake.
Yeah. Um,
You're muted.
yeah, I was saying I haven't seen this one, so you can rank it. Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas Special.
Oh, cheeseburger. That's yeah. The bad. Most of the plot's trying to get Kevin Bacon up to the nowhere planet toy to where it is to cheer up Quill for Christmas. It's not good. It's bad.
Okay. Wakanda Forever. Um, I think this is an
Well,
absolute cheeseburger. You know, I I never really liked this character or the characters of the Black Panther universe that much. But I did think the first film was pretty decent. This film obviously had a massive deficit, um,
mm,
which was it didn't have a Black Panther, right? It didn't have the Black Panther character. It desperately needed a recast of that character, or they needed to discontinue the series. There was no way in between. And the fact that they used this, this is one of the times where I actually agree with these anti woke kind of people, where clearly they used his death to follow this agenda that they have of making like as many female superheroes as they possibly can, and turning Black Panther
yeah.
into a female character. Um, and it didn't work, and she wasn't as compelling, she wasn't as interesting, and it wasn't cool to just discontinue the story of T'Challa. Um, and yeah, like even beyond that, the film was just fucking boring. I really didn't find it any, you know, interest at all in anything that was happening. And I thought I might like this one. You know, I thought the trailer was good, and I don't know, it just did nothing for me. What do you think?
I'm pretty mixed on this. I agree that they probably should have waited till they figured out what they want to do with T'Challa. I think they probably should have recast. I mean, they really should have recast. I just don't. I think that was a mistake there. There's some elements I really like of it. I like the battle in Wakanda when the Atlanteans or whatever they're called. They sprung up. I like that, and I like some of the soundtrack. The score. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
they cheaped out on some of the set designs for Atlantis or like whatever they call it in the film. I don't really like the guy that they picked to play Namor because I always pictured Namor as kind of Asian looking in the comics. So
mm,
it's he, I mean, they race swapped to the wrong race there. I don't know. I think there's some good in it, but and Angela Bassett's fantastic, but I'm mixed on it.
Angela Bassett was good in the one scene. I mean, let's not go crazy, but it was one scene where she was excellent. I agree, but she's
I
Angela
think
Bassett, so that's to be expected. If you give her some good material, she nails it. But can you hear me? Because I
Riri
feel
will.
like I'm cutting out.
No, I'm just
Am I
I
cutting
just
out? Okay.
no, you're fine. I think Riri Williams was shoved in there, and I don't really particularly find her all that compelling. Maybe if they would have introduced
Yeah.
her first, like in a TV show or something, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a mixed bag for
You
me.
know, it's certainly a mixed bag, but I take. I think you brought up some elements that I thought I really would like. I really thought the Atlantean stuff and Namor and all of that. Like I thought I would like it, and then I saw it, and it was just like nothing. I didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I'll put it in new McDonald's burger that sucks, but because it's better than it's better than Echo, and it's better than Secret Invasion or whatever. So, um, Vampire Werewolf by Midnight. Didn't watch it.
oh my god, that is like one of the top. That's like arguably the best thing they've done on television. It is really good, really
Really?
good.
Okay. So where would you put it?
I'd put it close to the top. That's like, I mean, it's Loki, that, and Moon Knight for
Happy
me is
Meal,
the best. I guess probably, yeah, or double quarter pounder. I don't know.
McShake.
I'd put it
Double quarter
close
pounder
to.
for you. This double quarter pounder is your go to, yeah.
I don't really eat McDonald's. I don't eat McDonald's, so I don't know. I'd put that at the top though, close to the top. It's really good.
Yeah. Uh, so McShake, I think, is what you're saying. Not the absolute top, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, good. Uh, oh my God, this Hulk TV. I didn't watch it. I was just like, look,
Was it?
this clearly is not made. The She-Hulk show. I was like, this
Oh,
clearly is not made for me. I've had enough of them destroying the Hulk character. I'm done. You know, because like Hulk was my favorite character growing up, and I was
yeah.
just like, look, I cannot. You know, do you know like a funny story is I actually nearly walked out of the second Avengers movie because
No.
when I nearly just didn't watch the rest of it. I I literally like got up out of my seat because Iron Man knocked out the Hulk, and I was
Well,
like,
he was.
"Are you fucking? Are you, on what planet does Iron Man knock out the Hulk. But then I just was like, okay, I've paid my money to watch this movie, so I'll finish it. But yeah,
Yeah,
anyway,
well,
the MCU has been screwed.
he
Mhm.
was wearing a Hulkbuster suit, so you know, you got to give him
No,
that.
the Hulkbuster suit. No, no. Even in the comic, the Hulkbuster suit is it makes him stronger. It makes him, somewhat able to take on the Hulk. But he's never defeated the Hulk in the Hulkbuster suit. Why? Simple, because the Hulk gets stronger the angrier he gets. That's it. It's simple. And maybe that's not a character that you can easily translate into films because you have to have these characters have some kind of limitations, but unfortunately the Hulk doesn't have fucking limitations, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, once you put that aspect as he gets angrier, he gets stronger, what are you supposed to do, like I understand the frustration of filmmakers, I really do, with the character, but at the same time, you have to be like somewhat respectful. You can't just be like, "Oh, Iron Man's popular, so we're going to get him to knock out the Hulk." At least get him to think of some scientific way of taking out the Hulk. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It would be like Batman v Superman if Batman just like no kryptonite just knocked out Superman. It's
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
what are we
Yeah.
doing here?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I watched the show,
But
She-Hulk.
what did you make of the She-Hulk show if you watched it?
Well, there's this perception that I love the show going around and all the chaos lists that are the community there. But no, I only like 4 of the 9 episodes. It is a pretty bad show, but there 4 of the episodes I liked. Thing is, and even the creators of the shows, they said they had a hard time. They didn't know how to write legal procedure shows or like courtroom dramas or anything like that. And that's where it fails because that's the great premise of the show is, you got a comedy and you got superheroes. You could have some really, amusing, storylines going on, but every single except one episode where they had a courtroom scene that the one that focused on the girl that partners up with Wong, that was top notch. The rest terrible. I think they had a really great lead, but she's kind of she's an easy target for the anti woke people. And you had the bad CG with She-Hulk. It's just it $300 million budget, and it didn't pay off for them. And you ain't going to get a second season because
It
of
had a
the negative.
300 million budget for a TV show.
Supposedly, it was way up there. It was way up there, and that's one of the
Holy
reasons why.
fuck!
And then you then
Now
you
I
got the
want to
final.
watch it. I'm kind of curious now. I just want to, as soon as I start talking about these things, I'm like, is it that absurd? Is it like, like I kind of want to watch it a little bit, but at the same
It
time,
could
because
have been great.
funny enough, they mentioned Ally McBeal, and I was a big fan of Ally McBeal,
Yeah,
even like the
yeah.
bad seasons. So,
It could have been. It could have been that with superheroes, but they dropped the ball. They had they didn't have the creative talent behind it. It could have been great. It wasn't. I think there were
no,
good
but I
aspects in it.
don't, at the same time, I think it's completely preposterous to suggest like Ally McBeal with superheroes. Why? Ally McBeal was like a show for chicks, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like, it's not exactly, it doesn't scream like the fan base for superheroes who are already
well,
like, oh, on this anti woke train or whatever, right? Like, you've got all of those fucking idiots, like,
yeah.
going crazy over the most minor thing, and you decide to give them, oh, you know what they'd really want to see? An Ally McBeal revival with superheroes. It's
Well,
like
well,
you set yourself up for failure.
well. I mean, they knew that was going to happen because several episodes was actually poking fun at the fans. So they knew what they were getting into when they started it, but it
Oh,
could have been
really?
great. And then in the final episode, they introduced Hulk's son from Planet Hulk.
Scar, really? Yeah, yeah, I
They
heard
do.
about that.
He shows up at the barbecue, and this is my son Scar,
And
and
who's
that's
who's he? Who's he the child of?
Hulk and some chick. I don't know.
So they don't even go into like who the mum is. It's
I
so
don't think
weird.
they would have
They
addressed that in Thor Ragnarok, and they didn't do it.
completely barbecued. They barbecued the Hulk, bro. Like one of them barbecues where you're like, take that shit off the flame, man. It's already done. They
Yeah,
burnt him, bro, to a crisp.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's. So where are you putting it anyway? Just
Towards the bottom. I mean, maybe
like
not
cheeseburger or
maybe. I know
over it.
everybody would put it. Everybody would put it straight at the bottom. I would put it slightly above the bottom because they had 4 episodes I enjoyed.
Uh-huh. All right. So just to tell you, I'm gonna do like a few more, and then I'm gonna do a dedicated stream to this.
Okay.
Because we've been going on for quite a while. So yeah, all right. So we have I Am Groot. Didn't watch. It's terrible. I haven't watched like a lot of these. So what did you think of I Am Groot?
They were just like 6 minute shorts. They were charming. They were fine. They were targeted to kids. I mean, they're harmless. It's just like a Disney cartoon. It's whatever.
So pretty high then. McShake?
Yeah. Huh?
McShake or
Yeah.
Happy Meal?
Like I said, I haven't been to McDonald's since I was a kid, so I don't.
Put it this way, okay. Was it very good or just good? Happy Meal's good.
It
McShake
was
is
good.
very
It was
good.
good. It was good. If I
Hmm.
was a kid, I'd probably like it a lot more. So
Hmm. All right. Thor Love and Thunder. Oh my god. This goes straight into cheeseburger, dude.
I
This
liked
is,
it.
the funny thing about this, you liked it.
I loved it.
Really? Wow. Now I'm interested. Go on.
It was
Explain.
fun. It was fun. I know people hate it. I know they say that Christian Bale was wasted and he was given a terrible look, and that's not how you're supposed to portray a cancer storyline and the death of a major character like that. But I don't know. I just thought it was fun. It was goofy. And I like Taika Waititi's other movies, and I think he gets a
I
little bit too
like
much
Taika
hate.
Waititi a lot. I like
They
Taika Waititi a lot.
the fanboys give
So
him
what are
way
you
too
saying?
much.
Happy Meal or McShake?
I've watched that film more than probably any other MCU film. I saw it about 4 times, so I would rate it close to the top, and I know I'm the odd man out on this.
So you're saying right at the top, like
No, well, for me it is, but no,
right at the
I
top. No, it's okay. You can like a movie. I'm like, it's you, man. Like it's your opinion, and I respect it.
I like it.
I'll say this about the movie. I find it funny that people who love um, Thor Ragnarok are against this movie because that's
Yeah.
exactly what they asked for. I always said
Mhm.
I thought Thor Ragnarok was incredibly silly. You've got Thor throwing a ball against the window and it bouncing back into his head. Everyone was applauding it, saying it's like the top 3 MCU movies of all time. And why would Taika Waititi do anything else but make a sequel that is equivalent to that movie? And that's what he did. I don't think, so
That-
in that sense, I defend the movie. I think if you've got a movie that works, right, like, and people like it, then your sequel should be that movie, like,
Yeah.
but bigger, right? That's how you make a good sequel, right? Like you don't try and switch lanes and give people something that they didn't get in the first movie. You just do the same tone and whatever of the first movie, but you expand the mythology and the story. And I think
Yeah.
that's what Thor: Love and Thunder did. Now, I didn't like it. I didn't like Thor Ragnarok, So, but I just don't understand the hate against this movie, like in the same way as you don't, because I'm like, you liked that just some years before, and you were saying this is a refreshing take on Thor, making him this comedy character, and everybody loved it. So, what's the problem?
Here's
You know?
Yeah, well, I think the problem is they don't get Taika Waititi, and they haven't watched his other films. They don't understand when he's making comments in these press junkets that they're sarcastic. He's a wise ass through and through, and a lot
Yeah,
of his stuff gets taken out of context, and they don't get it. So when he's making these comments, they think he just came in there to ruin everything, but no, he was a hired gun. All right, he just came in there to
mm,
punch up the humor, give him. Kevin Feige just hired
yeah,
him
yeah.
to humor on the Thor brand because after
But
the
to be
second film
fair,
they were
though, to be fair, the films of Taika Waititi, which are great, like what's the one where with Ricky, uh, the one where he's there's the orphan kid or whatever, or the foster kid, and he's
oh
living in New Zealand and goes on
Hunt for the
hunt for the
Wilder,
wilder people.
yeah, Widow People, yeah, that was great.
Fantastic movie, but the humor in that is just much more sophisticated than the ones that I found in the Thor movies, to be fair. Like
Well,
it's really sweet and sentimental, and it has this kind of heart to it. And it is absurd, it is ridiculous. I know there's a ridiculousness to that movie as well, but it still maintains the integrity of those characters. It doesn't make fun of the characters themselves. It's just the characters are funny, or are put in funny situations, and they're put in heartfelt situations as well.
yeah,
The Thor movies, I just think he thinks the characters are ridiculous, and to some extent, they are ridiculous. Like Thor as a character in the MCU is a ridiculous character. Um, but I don't know that emphasizing that makes for better viewing than actually just saying, okay, what if we take Thor seriously? Like, how would the character be, in the MCU? How would he operate in the MCU's world if we took him seriously? The kind of the way they did with Captain America. I think
yeah,
that would serve the character better than to emphasize how ridiculous he is, because you could emphasize how ridiculous Captain America is. I mean, the concept is just, it's so, ridiculously American, isn't it? Like no one would be Captain Brazil, in any other country. It really primarily comes from the attitude of Americans have towards America being the last empire, and seeing them as the like this great country, like So yeah, I just think if you poke fun too much at these characters, they crumble.
yeah.
Does that make
I
sense,
think
or
they
or am I
oh,
just
no, no, it makes perfect sense. I just think that him and Kevin might have wanted to maybe turn this into like Monty Python in a sense, give it kind of that type of vibe. Because after the second film, they a lot of people didn't care for the second film, Dark World, so they needed to go a different route, and it may have went a little bit too far down the comedy path, but the next film is supposed to bring
But
things back.
Thor: The Dark World was silly as well. I don't think the problem with Thor: The Dark World was it wasn't, like taking itself seriously. And I don't think that took Thor very seriously. I don't think any of the Thor movies took him very seriously.
It was just
Yeah,
dull.
I don't know. They were just dull, yeah. So let's see just quickly. I am Groot. He loves doing these equals. I am Groot equals for Disney children. um, Peter Jackson's Thor would have been amazing. Like I would have liked to see Peter Jackson take on Thor. That would have been much more interesting. Funny how fans hate Thor four, but love Thor 3. Yeah, it's true. That's what I was saying. MCU Thor equals He-Man. I wish. And Peter Jackson's Thor would be amazing. Yeah, that would have been a great director for either Wonder Woman or Thor. Is Peter Jackson. All right, so I'm gonna put Thor in. Look, let's just put him in the middle, mid quarter pounder, since
That's fine.
you like it, and I think you know. All right, Miss Marvel. I didn't watch it.
I did.
Sorry.
No, I like it.
Actually, I
think
did watch the
Iman.
first episode. Sorry, I watched the first episode. But go on. What were you?
I think Iman Vellani is a MVP of the MCU right now. She has tons of charisma. She was great in the Marvels. The show was actually really good until they started really diving into the superhero elements, because the villains were really underwritten and they didn't come around till like episode 4, and I think it's only like 6 episodes or 7 episodes. So they fast tracked the villains, and I didn't really care for the flashback episode and stuff, but I don't, I think she's the standout, and I can't wait to see where they take her with, Young Avengers or possibly the X-Men, because Miss Marvel's part of the X-Men now in the comics, I hear. So she may be used as a gateway character like Kitty Pryde or Jubilee when they bring men in. So, I liked
The
it.
X-Men, really? I
Yeah.
don't like that. I want to see Jubilee. I don't want to see other characters. All right. So the first episode I did actually see, and I actually quite liked it. Funnily enough, I didn't like it enough to invest my time in, because I was like, I just don't care about this character or anything. But I liked the comic booky elements of it. Like
the art
the way they
direction,
would
great.
make the art direction of making it into like a kind of comic book. And I think they even had like word bubbles on some of them, right? Like you'd see like the word bubble while speaking.
Yeah, for the text and stuff, they had it was graphic, like a scenes out of a comic book.
Yeah. I didn't really like that, but I did enjoy what was necessarily happening. I enjoyed that aspect. Yeah, because they did a lot of like teenage superheroes and nonsense. And that's one of the things that I had a problem with Shazam, is them making him just another teenage superhero rather than actually making him a kid. Because it's just like all these teenage superheroes, and it's like, just give me Spider-Man. I don't care about the rest of the teenage superheroes. That's it. Spider-Man is good enough for me. He did it. He did it the best. He did it well. I don't care about the rest of them. Maybe the X-Men, you could do teenage versions of them, but like in general, I'm just like, I'm over it. I'm not a teenager anymore. Maybe for teenagers, that's good, but I don't want to really dwell on the time of life when we are at our most obnoxious. Basically. But yeah, no, I thought it was fairly good. So I'm gonna put it in Happy Meal, right?
Okay.
Is that what you were going for, or?
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
Was it a bit higher for you?
Yeah, I think it's the perfect spot.
Okay. Now this one I liked, Multiverse of Madness, which should have been called the Multiverse of Sanity, because the multiverse stuff was not great. That is not what I liked about this movie. Um, I was expecting perhaps a little bit more in terms of an exploration of the multiverse, same as I was with The Flash. And I think they didn't. That's the real problem with those two movies. They don't execute on the multiverse. But this one specifically is problematic because it's got multiverse in the title when it really should have been called Doctor Strange and the Book of Ashanti, or Doctor Strange versus, you know, Black Widow, or no, not Black Widow. What's her name? Scarlet Witch,
Wanda.
something like
Yeah.
that. You know, but as for the actual film, I really liked the fact that it seemed like it had elements of that Raimi Spider-Man kind of vibe to it, you know. And I really enjoyed that, and I loved the creature designs, even though I'm a bit fed up of like these completely CG worlds. I think actually the way he used CG in this was actually quite creative. And yeah, so I enjoyed this one. The only thing um, I didn't, like about it is sometimes the tone kind of switched from like your typical MCU movie to a Sam Raimi movie. And I wish it had have just been the whole way through, just felt like a Sam Raimi movie. Um, because where it did, especially the horror elements coming in and stuff like that, I thought were really cool and creative. So I'm actually going to put this pretty high. I'm going to put this in not as good as Shazam 2 or the Batman, but great. I always just have to remind Anzo that it's no MCU movie is as good as those two movies. So, um, where would you put it?
Well, I've referred to this many times as the multiverse of midness. I'm kind of mixed on it. There's stuff I really like about it.
It's the multiverse of what?
Midness, mid.
Oh,
midness.
multiverse of midness. Okay.
Yeah, I'm mixed on it. I like that they really brought some horror elements into it. I like it. It went places that no Marvel film has. I like the visuals. I liked Shumagorath, or whatever they renamed the character in the first of the film, the big octopus monster, whatever, squid. I thought he was cool. But I just after me talking about Miss Marvel and how she's so charismatic and a great character and everything, I do not like America Chavez. I thought her backstory was incredibly stupid. I think her powers are Rainbow Bright level dumb. The star portals or whatever that's actually shaped like a star, I think it doesn't translate to film. Her backstory is
I liked her.
Her backstory is like, oh, I got afraid of the bee and it caused my parents to get swept away or whatever. I didn't care for it. I didn't like how easily Wanda beat Professor X and Reed Richards, and they were written so incredibly stupid.
Well, she would destroy Reed Richards. Let's be
yeah.
Let's be
I'm Reed
honest. I mean,
Richards.
like, what is Reed Richards going to do about? I can see your point of view with Professor X. Professor X is like the most powerful psychic
But
in the
Reed
world,
wouldn't
essentially. So
Reed wouldn't be stupid enough to say, "Hey, this guy right here, if he opens his mouth, he's gonna do something." What does she do? She removes his mouth. I mean, big slip up there for Reed Richards that he wouldn't do that. I don't know. I think there's maybe if I watch it again, the good will outweigh the bad, but I think there's some really bad stuff in it. But it's a mixed bag. I I wouldn't knock it down too low, but I don't know. I'll tell you what. There's an episode in the first season of What If. It's all about Doctor Strange and how he's it's kind of like Groundhog Day, where he's trying over and over and over to change the course of his history. I think that was a much better story than this movie, and I think it would have actually been a better film. But they're ramping up the multiverse saga, so they
Oh,
had to do this instead.
The what if story was excellent.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think that would have made a better Doctor Strange 2 than this movie. But having said that, I liked America Chavez, and it's kind of funny. And this isn't you. I'm just talking about the fandom in general.
Yeah.
Everyone criticizes when there's a female character who's a Mary Sue, right? Who can do anything, beat anybody, who takes over from the hero of the story, and everything like that. And then you're like, okay, so they don't like that. So we do a character who's not so able to control her abilities and can't do everything and is kind of up against the wall, and Doctor Strange does have to be, she kind of is the damsel in distress, Doctor Strange, and everybody hates that. So you can't do either one. You can't have. I suppose you could have like somewhere in the middle where she's competent as a character with her powers, but I think she was a young kid. It was just Doctor Strange like looking after this young girl who doesn't quite know her powers yet. And she comes through in the end. She actually has an arc where she comes through in the end, and is able to use her abilities, to defeat the villain, but not just in a punchy up, It wasn't just like, oh, I can just punch my way out of this situation. They actually had to come up with a way of meaningfully taking on Scarlet Witch, and that was by forcing her to actually see herself, to look at herself, and see what
Yeah.
she's doing. Like it was emotionally to get at her rather than and that's because a good villain is supposed to be an unbeatable monster, right? It's Jaws, right? Like they're unbeatable monsters. So how do you beat the unbeatable monster is the question, and they figured out, I think, a fairly good way of doing it. I do think they dispatched, you're right, of um, all of those characters a little bit too easily, but at the same time, I kind of found
Yeah.
it hilarious. I was
Well,
like,
I mean,
how many times
I
are they going to kill Professor X in these fucking
yeah,
movies?
yeah. I think it's the aesthetics of American Chavez I don't like. I think like I said, it's rainbow bright powers for me. This a star portal that looks like a perfectly shaped star. It's I don't know. In her background story, I just I don't have
Reed
a
Richards,
problem with
dumbest man
that.
alive, yeah.
I don't have a problem with her style of character. I just don't think she's fully realized, and it doesn't really translate the film. Her character and her powers. So
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to actually see Black Bolt's powers, though. I mean, I don't. Oh, yeah,
uh,
we did get to see it. Sorry, no, we did get to see it in the film. So,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, whatever, like, Black Bolt, who gives a fuck? Like, I'm sorry, like, it was Reed Richards. He's not gonna take on fucking Scarlet Witch, and neither is Captain America or Captain Britain or whatever she's called. None of those characters could take on fucking the Scarlet Witch, so they got killed. I don't really see the problem with that. Like, who's gonna beat her? I mean, the best one would have been Captain Marvel, right?
yeah,
And she
yeah.
did put up a decent fight. Actually, how did she kill Captain Marvel? Because I didn't really get that. Like, Captain Marvel just died because, like, some bricks fell on her? That didn't make a
I
lot of sense to me.
I think her shield got rebounded or something. I can't remember. She got off so quick. The only ones I really remember is Black Bolt,
No, 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 no,
Reed
no.
Richards.
No, not Captain Britain or whatever that version was. I'm talking about Captain Marvel.
Oh,
You
okay.
remember?
Yeah,
Yeah, Captain Marvel gets beaten as well. But like, you're
Rambo.
like,
Yeah,
how
I
did they
don't
beat
remember.
her? Like,
Don't
because
remember.
she just some bricks fell on her.
Maybe. I don't
But yeah,
remember.
yeah, it was kind of like funny, but I thought the movie was entertaining, and an important thing for me. Is it entertaining? Does it have massive gaping plot holes? I didn't feel it did. I thought the music was good. I thought you know, I just didn't like some of the cringy humor. That's my big problem with a lot of MCU is the quippy or cringy humor that they feel that they need to inject because otherwise people will get bored. It's like
And
just
then
tell your story, man.
that first battle they had with the archers and stuff, that was pretty cool too. So I mean, if I give it another watch,
Yeah.
I might think more about it. But I only watched it once, so
All right, I'm gonna put it in milkshake since you're a little bit more down on it than I am. But I'd put it at the top. It's one of my favorite MCU movies, but people don't like it for some reason. Then we've
I
got
think more
what
people
is
like
this?
it. Like,
What is this one? It's the something ghost, the white ghost, the what's his name?
oh, Moon Knight.
Moon Knight. There we go. I don't want to say
You,
anything. I feel bad. I don't
you
want to
didn't
say
watch it?
anything because I know you like this. No,
Yeah.
I didn't watch it. I know you
Oh,
like this.
yeah.
I
I
don't
thought
want to say anything.
okay.
Go
Uh,
on. No,
I
go on.
liked it. I liked it. I think some elements could have done better. I think maybe when I was watching it, I was like, you know, if they were going for an Egyptian dude to play this role and who's got multiple personalities, Rami Malek would have done a great. Wait a second, he played the same character on Mr. Robot, so I was thinking about Mr. Robot the whole time because but
Yeah,
yeah, no, I really liked it because it took things like in a completely different corner of the MCU that we haven't seen, and I really like the Egyptian background and stuff. I think they could have been expanded on. I like the chick in the show. She was not only she nice to look at, but I think if they don't bring her back, they say that they're going to give it a second season, but if they don't bring her back. James Gunn needs to snatch
yeah.
her up for the new Wonder Woman. She would be great as Wonder Woman. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know. I just
really?
thought it.
I need to
Yeah,
rewatch it and see. Maybe.
yeah. I just thought the story was pretty good. I think it's the second best MCU show behind Loki. I had a fun time with it. I do agree that there should
Oh,
have been
really?
way more. I think they should have been way more Moon Knight actually fighting in scenes and not just the home skillet in the suit. The suit and tie, whatever his name was. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
that was
good.
terrible.
Hell, and the
Um,
hippo, the hippo was kind of dumb, but what are you gonna do?
yeah, it was all. Look. I liked the first episode. I thought the first episode was really, really good, actually. Even the first couple of episodes, I liked him, like going between personalities and not knowing what had happened in between and just finding himself in this situation. But I just don't think they executed on Moon Knight very well. Like the actual Moon Knight. I remember seeing all these really cool scenes of who's the actor in it, the main actor,
Oscar Isaac.
whatever his name is, Oscar Isaacs. I saw him doing incredible fight choreography and stuff like that. I'm like, where is this in this TV show?
Yeah,
Like, where's
yeah.
all this cool choreography? Like with the Moon Knight, and again Moon Knight, I don't get it. Like honestly, like him as a character, what his powers are, what he's able to do, why
They always
it
they
seems
always
like it seems like a Batman ripoff,
yeah.
kind
That's what
of
he was.
that isn't just half as compelling.
That's what he was supposed to be coming into this. Everybody was saying, he's like the MCU's Batman. He's the MCU's Batman, but they didn't really deliver on that. I think maybe in season two they might, just depending on.
Maybe
It's from what I heard. Moon Knight's supposed to be a lot grittier. So That wasn't
Yeah,
as
it
gritty.
should be, I think. And
Yeah,
the problem is that they've got so many of these fucking superheroes now. And I think
yeah,
it was 1610 man who was saying like, dude, Marvel should just have stuck to the main fucking superheroes. Every once in a while, every 5 years you can bring out like, or every 3 years you can bring out like a new superhero maybe people haven't heard of, or maybe something new in the comics that has taken off, like Kick-Ass, or but you don't have to dr- just drag every single fucking character that's ever been made out into the public sphere. It's just, unless you've got a compelling story to tell about them. Don't just say, if somebody comes to you with a Moon Knight story that they've already, written, or at least, they have a story, like, what do you call it, a treatment for it, and they're really excited and passionate about bringing a Moonlight to, you know, to television, or film. Sure, but don't just say, before you've even come up with a story, oh, we're gonna make a Moon Knight, and we're gonna make Ant Girl and Squirrel Man and fucking, do you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I completely understand, like Blade. Oh, somebody comes to you with this dope ass idea for Blade. Yeah, he's not a superhero everybody knew at the time, but the guy's got a passion for it and really has an idea of what he wants this movie to be. And therefore, yeah, go for it. That's the way to bring out new superheroes. When somebody has a passion for it, Kick-Ass, I believe, was done in the same way. Someone had a passion for it. They saw the comic and they thought, oh, that would make a really dope film. You know, but this whole fucking philosophy of like, oh, we're just gonna, like, what was this Ironheart and all of that? Even before announcing these movies, before you've even fucking written them, before you've even got an idea for them, and they're just lame. Blue
yeah.
Beetle. I'm not even just saying MCU. Blue Beetle. Same with DC. Don't just fucking announce shit unless you've got a fucking idea of what you want to do with the characters.
Here's the issue. Here's the main issue of that. Disney Plus, they needed content. Uh, the kids today, that they're not going back and watching the old stuff that we grew up with. That they're not into it,
Yeah.
so they need new content, and they rely too heavily on Marvel and Star Wars to fill that content. They needed to bring some other stuff in to even things out. So they just went hog wild with the Marvel stuff, approving all these characters that, like you said, may not have needed a show or whatever. And it's just, all it comes down to trying to make their streaming app successful and to compete with Netflix and other, the HBO that's been in the game for decades. They needed content, and that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I get that, but you can make content around the superheroes who are popular, or who
Yeah.
have an actual story to tell, or who have
Or
comics where, like, there's so many Captain America comics they haven't even gone into yet.
yeah,
Like Captain America had like adventures. Unfortunately, they've kind of stuck themselves in the situation where, with their version of Captain America, he becomes Captain America and then gets frozen, right? Like immediately. But in the comics, like obviously he's Captain America for a while in the past before he gets frozen. And so he had various different adventures and stuff like that you could have brought to light. Like, I don't know. It's just my major problem. I think this of anything, but especially of superheroes that don't have great villains. They don't have a great city. They don't have a great supporting cast. They don't have a built-in mythology that screams like this is going to be iconic, right? Like, of those
yeah,
superheroes, you have to be really, really fucking careful about just putting them out there, because eventually people are just going to get tired of the whole thing, because all you're going to do is when you have a superhero like that is so empty of content because they haven't been fleshed out in the comics, is you're just going to take stuff from other established superheroes, right? And you're just going to kind of mishmash that to make to flesh out, you know, these newer superheroes. Do you know what I'm saying? So Captain
Oh yeah.
Marvel becomes a little bit Wonder Woman, a little bit, you know, X-Men, a little bit this, a little bit that, you know, because she doesn't really have her own compelling story yet, you know. So go on, you can say what you're gonna say.
Oh no, I was thinking, some of these characters they could have and probably should have just started off in animation on Disney Plus. That way,
Right.
you would save a lot of money, and not everybody would have to watch it and stuff. I mean, a lot of people's not going to give animation a chance, but if they do get a following, then hey, then maybe you could ease them into the films, like an adventures film or something, and you know that would be one way to go about it. But
You know, but what upsets me about it is now that because people can't distinguish between all these, you know, Z-list superheroes and the actual superheroes who do have a story, who do have villains, who do have their own, you know, like cast and mythology. Now they get lumped in with all the rest of these superheroes,
yep,
you know.
yep.
So anyway, I think I'm gonna cut it off for now, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna rank from Spider-Man: No Way Home all the rest of them. Like we're gonna rank this. I don't know if Shifty will join me. I'm sure he's probably kind of busy with other things, but he's welcome. You're absolutely welcome to join me when
All
I
right,
finish off this ranking.
we're doing that
But yeah,
today.
do you want to do it today with me?
I, I,
Because I
I,
can
I
set it
didn't.
up for later
Okay, I mean,
when you're free.
I didn't know exactly when you was going to do it. So I mean,
Yeah, we can set it up for later. Like say in about 6, 7 hours or something like that.
I'll probably be busy. But if I see you on and if I'm free, I will jump on and we'll continue
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. Whichever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But yeah, for now, I think we've talked enough. I've talked enough
yeah,
superheroes for
yeah. Thanks for having me on, though.
this moment in time. No, no, no. You're welcome. Thank you for joining me and helping me out with it. But I
Yeah,
thought Spider-Man: No Way Home was a good cliffhanger
yeah.
to end on. So that's the next one we're going to be, or I'm going to be ranking. All right, cool. Thank you guys. You
Later.
know what it is. See you on the flip front side and love you 3000. Peace.
Yep. Later.
Later. Oh, yeah, later. I was gonna just say, yeah, thank you, 1610 man. And you're right, they should stick to those. And you should have added Shazam to that list because Shazam is actually an A-list character. He's not the B or Z list character that people say. But yeah, they should stick to Green Lanterns and Wonder Womans and not go into all of these obscure characters. Just focus on those main characters, get them right, you know, and the rest will follow. All right, peace, guys.